myself Sindhuja. I'm studying in Srinivasa Ramanujan Institute of Technology, Anantapur, and I'm from branch ECE on CI2 assignment. And today's my presentation is on topic effects of nuclear hazards on the environment, and this topic I took from the subject environmental science and the subject code 23NCMC01, and my roll number is 23401A04A7. Let us see what is the effect of nuclear hazards on the environment, and let us see the introduction to the nuclear hazards. Nuclear hazards refers to the risks associated with the release of radioactive materials into the environment. These hazards can arise from nuclear power plant accidents, waste disposal failures, or nuclear weapon detonations. Understanding the impact of such events is crucial for environmental protection and public health. And beside picture we can see that in pyramidal structure, and top of the 3 is known as accident, and below 4 is known as incident, and the 7 represents the major accident, and 6 represents to serious accidents, and 5 represents to accident with wider consequences, 4 represents accident with local consequences, and the 3 represents serious incident, and 2 represents incident, and 1 was anomaly, and 0 represents the deviation. This was the introductions to the nuclear hazards. Let us see what are the nuclear hazards and their types. The primary types of nuclear hazards include radiation exposure, contamination, and thermal power. Thermal pollution. Radiation exposure can occur through direct contact or inhalation of radioactive particles. Contamination can affect soil, water, and air quality, posing long-term risks to ecosystems. In beside picture we can see that preventing measures for nuclear hazards. Basically, there are few options for radiation waste treatment involving containment of the waste in radiation shielded containers, usually buried underground, isolation of radiation waste in remote locations such as remote caves or abandoned mines, which may also involve the use of some kinds of barrier shields. When the first two alternatives are not possible, the waste may be diluted till background values are achieved. These are the preventing measures for the nuclear hazards, what we saw below in 3 points. And immediate environmental effects. Immediate effect of nuclear hazards can include destruction, habitats, and loss of biodiversity. Radioactive fallout can lead to acute radiation sickness in wildlife and humans alike. The thermal impact from nuclear accidents can alter local climates and disrupt ecosystems. In beside picture we can observe that radiation exposure as fears of meltdown and background radiation. In pie chart comparing exposures and symptoms of radiation exposure, and by graph representation we can observe that chances of death based on the exposure level. These are the radiation exposure odds. And let us see what are the long term environmental consequences. Long term consequences may involve persistent contamination of land and water resources. Radioactive isotopes can remain hazardous for thousands of years and complicating restoration efforts. Ecosystems can suffer from chronic exposure, leading to genetic mutations and population declines. In beside picture, we can observe that the blue dot things as drivers of climate change, changes to the climate system, and the impacts on long term environmental consequences. Let us see what are the impact and flora flora and fauna. Let us know what are the impacts on the flora and fauna. Plants exposed to radiation may exhibit stunted growth, mutations, or increased mortality rates. Animal species can experience reproductive failures and increased susceptibility to diseases. Bioaccumulation of radioactive materials in food chains can threaten predators and human health. And let us observe the socio-economic effects. Nuclear hazards can lead to significant economic losses due to evacuation and cleanup efforts. Contaminated areas may become uninhabitable, displacing communities and disrupting livelihoods. The third one is that the stigma associated with the nuclear events can hinder tourism and local business for years. In side picture in the pie chart, we represent that the green color part represents that radon 42% and thick blue color represents in pie diagram is about 14% cosmic, and the gray color represents that buildings and soil 18% and the little bit of yellow color in the pie chart represents that nuclear industries at 1% and the orange color represents that medicine 14% and the last final one, the sky blue color represents that food and drinking water at 11%. These are the socio-economic effects in community. Remediation and recovery. Let us see what is remediation and recovery. Remediation Remediation efforts are essential for restoring contaminated environments back to safety. Techniques include soil removal, water treatment, and the use of phytoremediation to absorb the contaminants. Recovery can take decades, requiring ongoing monitoring and community involvement. And the soil remediation is all of four types. Let us know what are they and their images. The first part is that total or partial excavation and disposal has hazardous waste. In situ on and on site. In situ and on site processing techniques, retention or restriction of contamination, monitoring of natural weakening of contaminated area. This is as known as soil remediation and recovery of the soil in the community. And let us see what are the case studies of nuclear hazards. The Chernobyl disaster of 1996 resulted in large-scale environmental contamination across Europe. The Fukushima Daiichi incident in 2011 led to extensive marine and terrestrial impacts in Japan. These effects highlight the complex interactions between nuclear hazards and environmental health. The, the case study Chernobyl nuclear disaster in former USSR under elective disaster management. This is by Jamir Y. Mulani. Undergo guidance of Professor Prachi Iyer and Nazia Mistry. And the conclusion and future considerations on nuclear hazards. Ongoing research is needed to better understand and long-term effects of nuclear hazards. Innovations in nuclear technology aim to minimize risks and enhance safety measures. A proactive approach to both prevention and remediation can help safeguard the environment. Due to the effects due to the nuclear hazards, the effects of fires, radiation, sickness, structural damage, nuclear fallout, environmental damage. This was the effect on the nuclear hazards on environment. Thank you.